Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm your host, Steve Lance. Here's a look at today's top stories. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is now confirmed as the next Supreme Court justice. The Senate voted this afternoon, and there were a few Republican votes to confirm President Biden's pick to the nation's highest court. Repealing Title 42 could lead to millions of illegal aliens entering the United States on a yearly basis. This according to a border state congresswoman. We'll sit down with her to discuss. Should lawmakers be banned from trading stocks? The debate intensifies on Capitol Hill today as Democrats push for legislation, while Republicans argue that it violates individual freedom. What might happen next? Today on Capitol Hill, the Senate confirmed Ketanji Brown Jackson to the nation's highest court. Vice President Harris was on the Hill to mark the occasion. NTD's Melina Wisecup has the details for us.
The yeas are 53, the nays are 47, and this nomination is confirmed.
This afternoon, all Democrats, as expected, happily voted to confirm President Biden's pick to the nation's highest court. Right after that vote, Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee came and spoke to reporters. I asked them what went into their decision-making process. Chairman Durbin told me that it's Jackson's perseverance and dedication that stood out to him, while Senator Klobuchar told me that it's her down-to-earth and relatable personality that hit home for her. Let's listen.
They also saw when she was asked about being a mom, and she said, "I'm not always perfect. I try my best." And there was something about how she answered questions about her faith and about her own world around her and how she felt as a person that I thought was pretty unique compared to a lot of other nominees. And I think that captured Americans, that they genuinely liked her and they understood her. And one of her attributes is that she gets that these decisions aren't just words on a page, that they actually affect people in their everyday lives.
Now, joining all 50 of those Democrats with the yes vote were 3 Republican senators. As expected, those were Collins, Murkowski, and Romney. And the reason why those 3 senators voted yes, all for very similar reasons. They say that after meeting with Jackson one-on-one, she left a very great impression on them. Murkowski specifically says that she didn't want to feel forced to vote one way or the other, simply based on the political party of the sitting president. Now, what's interesting about all the other Republicans who voted no, they said something similar. They all said that they believe Jackson does have a great personality and that she is very smart, but they told us they're concerned about her record. Senator Ted Cruz specifically says he's concerned about her record on sentencing. I asked him to be a bit more specific about that. Here's a bit of that exchange.
But her record is extreme, and it suggests a 3-decade-long pattern of advocating for very, very lenient sentences.
What specific consequences are you concerned about? How will it impact our nation?
I am concerned that she will vote over and over and over again to release violent criminals from jail. She will vote over and over and over again to overturn capital murder convictions, to strike down death penalty sentences. She will vote over and over and over again to strike down serious punishments for sex offenders.
And after Jackson is confirmed to the court, it won't change the makeup of the court. The Supreme Court will still be conservative-leaning. Jackson is expected to be seated after Justice Breyer's retirement later this summer. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
A group of senators on both sides of the aisle are calling for an extension of Title 42, unless the administration lifts nationwide COVID states of emergency. The Biden administration announced its plans to end the Title 42 on May 23rd. Senator Lankford of Oklahoma strongly opposed because he didn't think there's enough time for the Department of Homeland Security to provide a plan, avoiding further chaos at the border. Lankford and 9 other senators today introduced a bipartisan bill. Lankford said in a statement, "When we drop Title 42 at the border, DHS must also implement a workable solution to expel migrants." Senator Joe Manchin said Title 42 should be enacted until we get complete border security. For D.C. residents and lawmakers, the border crisis might start to hit closer to home. Texas plans to send thousands of illegal immigrants to Washington, D.C. by the busload.
to help local officials whose communities are being overwhelmed by hordes of illegal immigrants who are being dropped off by the Biden administration. Texas is providing charter buses to send these illegal immigrants who have been dropped off by the Biden administration to Washington, D.C.
This move comes as the Biden administration is ending Title 42 in May. Title 42 is a public health law that has limited asylum due to the pandemic. Border Patrol say they're planning for up to 18,000 illegal immigrants crossing per day. That's more than 500,000 entering each month. Congresswoman Yvette Herrell represents New Mexico's 2nd District and knows firsthand the impacts of illegal immigration. We sat down with her earlier to discuss. Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
You represent a border state, New Mexico. What are the consequences of Title 42 being repealed?
Yeah, this is really as if it couldn't get bad enough or even worse. Here we are. Title 42 right now, that is the one policy that the Trump administration put into play since we were going through the COVID pandemic, and it gives the Border Patrol agents the ability to do a quick process on the border and then expel those coming into the country illegally, either back into Mexico or Canada. So just to give you a little background, we're still under this pandemic, this COVID pandemic. This really is the last thread, if you will, that keeps our border somewhat in check. I mean, now we've seen record number of people coming across the border over the last year, but when they take it away, the implications are going to be terrifying, because now not only is New Mexico, Arizona, California, Texas, not only are they border states, every state in the nation is truly a border state by virtue of the fentanyl, the drugs coming across the southern border, being pushed up into the interior, people that are now being flown all over the nation. I mean, I have friends that I serve with that are seeing plane loads of those making it across our border illegally, but are getting sent to Pennsylvania or New York or Kansas. It's a huge pandemic, and Title 42 will unleash the floodgates, and we shall see about 18,000 people a day coming across the southern border, which will put even more pressure, on our Border Patrol agents and our communities that are right inside the American border.
Now, I'm curious, you touched upon fentanyl. It's obviously a lethal drug that's crossing beyond stigmas. It's killing mainstream Americans. So what are your Democrat colleagues saying about this issue? And are there some or any that see the crisis and relate it to the border?
Yeah, I think there are actually some, and in fact, the Texas delegation sent a letter to the president asking them to keep Title 42 in play, and I know Henry Cuellar and Gonzalez, Representative Gonzalez, both signed on to that letter, two Democrats. So I think we are starting to see some Democrats take and they know it's a serious issue. I mean, largely, the fentanyl coming into this country it's made by China, coming through our southern border and then being pushed out. But here's the thing. Fentanyl killed over 100,000 people in America last year, and now is the #1 killer for those between the age of 18 and 45 in terms of overdose. So again, and this is happening in neighborhoods and communities all over the country. And what's frightening is the cartel are building themselves an empire, not only financially, but with people that are coming into our country. They're in control of all of this on the southern border. And we have been in meetings with Brandon Judd of the Border Patrol Council, with others. We know that this kind of power, this kind of money enables cartel to take over small communities and governments. I mean, right now, there are actual communities in Mexico where the federales won't even go because the cartel has taken over. So we are creating something even more dangerous than we can even fathom by providing them the means, and the means is the money that they're making with each and every person that sets foot across the American and Mexico border.
And we're seeing Democratic Congressman, I think Henry Cuellar, has taken a lot of heat from his colleagues on the left for his stance on the border, but that's because he is on the border, there's a lot of Democrats that are changing votes. So now we're hearing Texas may start sending, they have 900 buses ready to ship all of these illegals who are granted a stay here straight to Washington, D.C. So my question to you, is this a political stunt, or is it a case of where it's not in your own backyard, so it doesn't matter, so here you go?
Right. I really think it's a little bit of both, but primarily I think the attention that I think Governor Abbott is trying to get is just to really showcase to people, because you're right, there tends to be this kind of out of sight, out of mind, and the reality of the world we live in right now, people are worried about paying for gas, paying for groceries, getting their kids in and out of school, moving them to their ball practices, doing, these things that day-to-day family members do, small business owners, keeping their doors open, keeping their employees there. So I don't think that everyone's focusing on what's happening at the southern border. And I believe when we start looking at the bigger picture, first off, we've got to protect our nation's sovereignty. And I think one thing, and of course this goes back to history, and we don't teach this very much anymore, but the federal government was created by the states to take care, not the other way around. And so there is a constitutional responsibility for them to protect our borders and to protect our health, safety, and welfare. They are failing on that responsibility. We all took an oath to make sure that we're protecting our United States of America, so this is something that the federal government has failed on miserably, and sadly, it never had to escalate to this place because the policies that had been in place under the previous administration were working. The Remain in Mexico, Title 42.
Congresswoman Yvette Harrell, thank you.
You are welcome.
Being a lawmaker comes with sacrifices, but should selling your stocks and perhaps even your families be one of them? NTD's Iris Tao has more in a hearing today debating whether to ban members of Congress from being able to trade stocks.
We are elected to serve the people, not stock portfolios.
Citing a need to regain public trust, Democrats are renewing a call to ban lawmakers from trading stocks.
Whether we are thinking about padding our pockets or if we're thinking about representing the public interest. And there is a deficit of trust in the American people.
There has been an array of proposals to ban or restrict the practice, but lawmakers are still debating on how far legislation should ultimately go. A Thursday congressional hearing took stock of the issue, with some witnesses echoing the idea that not only lawmakers but also their spouses and children should be subject to the ban.
Some members may have questions about the impact of these reforms on their own or their family's interests. These concerns are not more important than the public's right to know.
The push comes after dozens of lawmakers were found to have committed violations of a federal conflict of interest law known as the Stock Act. And amid the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, congressional investments in medical and defense companies have also come under scrutiny.
Without the public's trust and confidence, government loses its legitimacy.
While some Republicans, including House Leader Kevin McCarthy, have said they support a stock ban, others are pushing back.
And if we enact something like this that restricts the rights and the freedoms of individuals, and everybody in this committee is a free American citizen that has rights, and part of the rights as explicitly defined by our founders was the right to participate in a free market society.
Another question stems from whether such a ban would hurt the not-so-wealthy lawmakers who want to follow the rules.
But our goal also is to make sure that those who want to follow the law and those who want to follow transparency measures have the ability to do so without being labeled corrupt.
Meanwhile, Democrats are facing a tight window to pass the legislation as midterm elections are coming up and the ongoing debate over the bill's details doesn't seem to be ending soon. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
In a sweeping unanimous vote, the U.S. Senate passed 2 bills targeting Russia for alleged atrocities. After the alleged attacks on civilians in Bucha, the United Nations took up a vote to remove Russia from the Human Rights Council. Don't visit Taiwan, or else. This is the message from the Chinese Communist Party to United States Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. We'll bring you the details. Hello and welcome back to NTD's Capitol Report. I'm your host, Steve Lance. The United Nations ousted Russia from the Human Rights Council on Thursday. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield launched the campaign to remove Russia from the UN's leading human rights body in wake of alleged killings of civilians in Bucha, Ukraine. The vote was 93-24. Countries voting against the resolution included Belarus, China, and Iran. 58 countries abstained, many of them stating that they would wait to find out the results of the impartial investigations. This resolution did not get as much support as two resolutions last month, those demanding a ceasefire and a withdrawal of Russian forces. Those resolutions each had at least 140 votes. The Senate has voted unanimously to end normal trade relations with Russia and ban imports of Russian oil. All 100 senators voted to pass two bills aimed at cutting off ties with Russia and crippling the Russian economy.
On this vote, the yeas are 100. The nays are 0. The bill as amended is passed.
The first bill ends Russia's preferential trade status and reauthorizes the Magnitsky Act. The act allows the U.S. government to sanction human rights offenders, freeze their assets, and ban them from entering the U.S. The second bill bans imports of Russian energy products. Last month, President Biden already signed an executive order to that effect. The bill passed today would put that into law. At a House hearing yesterday, lawmakers asked Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen if the U.S. would sanction Beijing in the case that it invades Taiwan.
Absolutely. I believe we've shown that we can. In the case of Russia, we threatened significant consequences. We've imposed significant consequences. And I think that you should not doubt our ability and resolve to do the same in other situations.
Beijing has been criticized for its stance on Moscow since the war started in Ukraine. The Chinese Communist Party parrots Russia's narratives and censors negative portrayals of Russia's invasion inside of China. It also refuses to condemn Russian aggression and has repeatedly blamed the U.S. and NATO for instigating the conflict. News broke that Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi may be planning to visit the independent nation of Taiwan. And no sooner did the office of China's foreign minister condemn the idea, even threatening the United States if it were to happen. Here to assess, we're happy to have Colorado Congressman Ken Buck. Congressman Ken Buck, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Congressman, there's talk of Speaker Nancy Pelosi visiting Taiwan, and the CCP has reacted by saying the trip should be canceled and that they'll take strong measures if she were to go. So I guess, what are your thoughts on the CCP foreign minister's comments?
What's really important is that Communist China understands that we stand with Taiwan, that what's going on in Ukraine should not be interpreted in any way as a sign that America believes that China can conduct any type of military activity regarding Taiwan. They are a close ally of ours, they're a close trading partner of ours, and we will not stand for any type of aggression towards Taiwan. I am very happy that the Speaker is taking this action. I think that it's a critical time in the world to take this action. If the Communist Chinese think that the world has been distracted by what's going on in Ukraine, they might very well make a decision that would be really catastrophic in terms of the world's stability at this point.
So, Congressman, some military experts say that during the buildup of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border leading up to the war, there were 10,000, 20,000. There was a gradual buildup. Some are saying that the U.S. should have been supplying, not just U.S., NATO, all of the European allies, should have been supplying more advanced weapons to Ukraine in hopes that this may have deterred Russia. Do you think that the same logic may or should be applied to Taiwan, supplying them with more military capabilities right now?
I absolutely believe we should be helping them with more military capabilities. I think there are a number of projects that are ongoing right now that have been started in the last year or two, and I think it's absolutely essential that Taiwan be given every opportunity to defend itself, and that we make it very clear to China that we will not accept a military solution in this situation.
The Senate has voted to revoke Russia's favored nation trade status. This is coming over to you in the House. Do you think our other adversaries like China are still deserving of this benefit?
Great question. I think if we take it away before China acts, they have nothing to lose. If they do decide to act militarily against Taiwan, so I think that we benefit a great deal from that trade status with China. I think the key from America's perspective is that we do everything we can in the Pacific Rim to develop bilateral trade agreements with Pacific Rim countries so that if something does happen that strains our relationship with China, that we are in a position to continue to manufacture goods and also to import goods from friendly Asian countries.
On a separate topic, Congressman, with what's shaping up to be a historical midterm election cycle, what issues do you think are going to be at the top of the ballot?
Well, I think right now, as I go home to Colorado and listen to people, they're very concerned about inflation. They're concerned about the price of gas at the pump. They're concerned about the border crisis. They are concerned about how we withdrew from Afghanistan. They're concerned about the impact that weakness showed towards Russia and China. There are many issues that people just scratch their heads right now, do not understand. We should be producing more energy domestically, being able to ship that to our allies in Western Europe, and making sure that we create good jobs here at home. People don't understand why this administration has such a radical green agenda, that they will hurt this country and our allies in the process of pushing an agenda like that.
Colorado Congressman Ken Buck, thank you.
Thank you.
The House passes a bill that would provide more financial relief to small businesses. $55 billion in aid will go to restaurants and other industries that missed out on prior COVID relief.
The bill is passed without objection. Motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Restaurants are expected to receive $42 billion, and other small businesses such as performing arts venues will receive $13 billion in aid. The Senate will take up the bill after Easter recess. Earlier this week, head of the Small Business Committee, Senator Ben Cardin, said he is also working on a similar $48 billion package with Senator Wicker of Mississippi. And that's all we have for you this evening on the Capitol Report. Thank you for tuning in. From Washington, D.C., I'm Steve Lance, and we'll see you tomorrow.